Hi, everybody. This is the second episode, or I guess the first real episode of GMParty. What we do here is we talk, we have a bunch of game developers get together and talk about their crazy ideas. So right now we have a few people. I'll just go around the table virtually, and then we'll get right to it. First, we have Quinn Murphy, the expert social fiction master. Thoughtcrimegames.net if you want him. Like his URL is right at the bottom of his screen there. Then we have Greg. Okay, I can't say your last name.
Spiridonov.
Spiridonov. Yes, I should be able to say it, but I can never do it right and never do it justice. And he's a local dev here that I frequently game with. Semi-frequently game with, and Matt Hoy, who is one of the co-founders of Epic Roll, a PAX spin-off, I guess, so to speak. It came out of PAX anyway.
Yeah.
So in the pilot episode, I went through some of the designs of my game, as well as some talk with Mark Richardson of Headspace fame. So I'm going to talk about my stuff last, if that's okay, unless you guys want me to set the ball rolling. I can certainly do that, but I'd like to give you guys the floor and talk about what you are doing right now, what you have accomplished in recent times, and anything that's like tripping you up with your game designs right now. Let's start with Quinn, because I know he's in production on like 400 different things right now. So, how about we start there?
Sure. So I guess start with just like a little like super quick background. I've been playing role-playing games for ever. We're approaching like 30 years now. I've been gaming since I was 11, just turned 40. All right. But over the last, and I've always been the person who GMs. I've always been the person who's, writing stuff. And over the last maybe decade or so, I've been blogging and doing freelance game design, things like that. I first sort of, I was doing work before, but I think the sort of first thing that most people might know me for, if they know me, small slice of fame, if any, but for fourth ed D&D work, I ran a blog called At Will, and we did a bunch of stuff like that. We did a lot of here's like stuff that you're not going to find in the rule book, kind of crazy stuff like world breakers and different like variations. We did a lot of work on skill challenges, blah blah blah. Then fast forward, fourth ed went into kind of a tailspin, and we kind of parted ways with sort of that in the community. And about a year later, I came back. I'm still designing and looking at stuff. I played a lot more than fourth ed D&D for sure, and wanted to keep designing. And so then come Thought Crime Games, where I can continue to be even more professionally weird on stuff. And so I have been. Meanwhile, freelancing for certain projects here and there. And I think one of the current things I have going right now, I do also like freelance writing and talking about games. So, I've been on Giant Bomb, where I did a piece on role-playing games there and the sort of intersect between them and video games. And also I write for Daily MTG, the Magic site, just talking about the card game. So that's me. Then the other thing that I feel I need to explain that I'm working on right now is that's a context for the actual products that I'm working on now. I'm working on something that I call social fiction, and it's always weird when you name something, and because it makes it sound like you've discovered everything that no one else has done. But really, there are a lot of things that we've normally called RPGs that really fall into what I deem social fiction space. Games like Fiasco and Right. They're games that are more about immersion in story rather than character, and are more about collaborative storytelling rather than game-based storytelling. What I like to call game emergent storytelling, where the story comes out of the game rules that you apply. I had to come up with a term because I got tired of describing my own work that I'm working on now it's like D&D, except we don't do this, we don't do that, we don't do this. It's like D&D, but except completely a different angle and different set of goals. So I find when you're doing that, you have to kind of actually define what it is that you're doing, and it makes it hopefully easier to talk about. But I don't. It's not a term I'm trying to use for the new kids or the cool kids. I'm just trying to make it easier to talk about the work I do. And so the things I'm working on are less concerned about rules and more concerned about improv structures and ways to sort of just, hey, we're going to sit here, we're going to take this like little book and start to play immediately, almost immediately, and start making up story. And these things they'll tell us sort of how to go, where to go, but not how to get there, which is part of the fun of a storytelling scenario. But then it also detaches us from characters. You're not making one character and leveling it up. You're author. And Andy, I have to credit you. You helped me come up with one of the things that was confusing was when I call people players. And people were like, oh, players, like this must be like a game. I'm rolling like dice to get advantage, and author is a much better metaphor. So everyone's sort of GMs and players. Yeah,
the collaborative storytelling sort of theme, I think, is much stronger towards social fiction than board game sort of aspect.
Right, exactly. It's about how we're going to get together and tell like an interesting story, because we're also, and a great thing about RPGs is that you're a player and you're a participant, but you're also the main audience. Yeah. Right. And it's only till like recently with the advent of like streaming that an actual outside audience is even a strong consideration. But up until then, the whole medium has been about, we're the people making and watching the movie.
Yeah,
that we're doing.
Yeah, we had Stephen Dewey on the pilot episode, and he was talking about LARP experience, whereas LARP is very much there is no audience. The audience is the participants.
Right. Yeah, and you're trying to in like in a LARP, you're trying to immerse as deeply as is like feasible and realistic. Sort of delve in there, and for the stuff I'm doing, you're trying to immerse in the actual telling of the story. Like it's much more like a writer's room than we are imagining ourselves in it. We're imagining kind of the story. So that's that box. So to the part that's probably relevant is so I'm working right now. I'm working on a few things, but this week in particular, I'm going to a great little game designer retreat called SanCon, and they're going to be freeform and RPGs and lots of story game stuff there, and I can't wait. And so what I'm taking there is the revised version of a game of mine that's been sitting around for too long. I really kind of want to finish it and push it forward. But it's called Five Fires, and it started off as just a kind of a hip hop RPG based on you're basically. It's a game about art, really, and that art just happens to be hip hop, this criminalized form of art, where you play sort of graffiti writers, breakdancers, MCs, kind of in the golden era, the early '80s of hip hop, in your own sort of fictional city, and you're telling the lives of these characters, and then how art intersects and transforms their lives. And the earlier version, I guess the current version, is pretty playable. I think, especially if you've come from any other RPG background, this is pretty playable, and I think it's pretty fun. I like it, but it's still not doing what I want it to do. And so I'm currently sort of taking all my ideas and sort of smoothing it out into something that's a little simpler and more relatable to get into. Like a huge thing when I describe Five Fires, and I guess maybe this would be sort of a good jumping point off for discussion, right? When I talk about Five Fires, people go, "Hey, that sounds really awesome, like a hip hop RPG," and I like these kind of ideas that it's art and how does art affect people's lives. But I'm not really involved in hip hop culture, and I don't know if I can, relate necessarily, or if I can kind of be authentic to the experience, right? And people go, "Oh, well, like great, but like maybe I'll watch that." But I don't want people to watch it. I want people to play it. But how do you? Like hip hop is the thing that's been so politicized and so sort of pushed to a group or away from other groups that it feels like almost a political act just to go, hey, like I'm gonna play as a hip hop guy and I'm somebody from the suburbs of in the Midwest, right? And there's a sort of a self-restricting identity barrier. And so what I'm working on right now for the character creation is I had a really cool character creation thing where you kind of talk and do things, but it was like you're making up another person. And what I wanted to do and where I'm at right now and sort of trying to focus it is to make, I guess I call it sort of like empathy-based character creation, where I actually, you do the talk before a game, where you're talking like, hey, how's your day? What's going on? Like the talk we were doing, like, hey, how's everybody doing? Blah, blah, blah. To take that and to actually turn that into themes for the session, right? Hey, how was your day? Blah, blah, blah. Somebody gets to like, hey, what was something good that happened to you today? And you just relate your day, right? And that.
Have you actually taken a look at the game Dread?
Yes.
So the Dread has, as their character creation, the character questionnaires. A few games do that.
Right.
Dread does it particularly well, I thought. They have very leading questions. Like, tell us about the time that you threw your little sister's doll down the stairs or whatever. Or why did you make her sad? Or that very, very begging the question kind of things.
Well, this one, my aim is actually to you talk as yourself, right? These questions are, hey, how would, like, literally, Andy, how was your day today? Like, tell me something good that's been happening to you lately. And then we can kind of, after you sort of tell us, we kind of put on the board for the session. This is kind of one of the themes we go, oh, well, how could we sum this up, right? Almost like you're turning it into kind of to use Fate terms, like an aspect or like kind of a phrase, right? Like, how would you describe this cool thing that happened in a general way, right?
Oh, so
and then that
the player rather than the character.
As the player, as the character, because I want to bring stuff from your life into the game. Right, I want to use the player author content in this world because there's this kind of, and I understand what's going on, but I want to kind of break it down early. This separation of, well, I'm not a hip hop artist, I can't rap, or I'm not like an MC, right? But like, because when you make a thing over a reel, something real, all of a sudden people start kind of limiting themselves, right? If you go, hey, you're in a fantasy realm and you're playing a knight, right? It never really bothers you the fact that you can't swing a sword, that you know nothing about getting in plate armor, that you know next to nothing about dragons or dragon slaying, right? But if I say, hey, you're playing like a police officer or a firefighter, like all of a sudden this urge of, because those are real things, right? Like that urge of authenticity kind of hops up, and so I'm trying to break that down, but I don't know. What does that seem like a problem to everyone, or like how would you approach that?
So what I'm getting here from you is that you're trying to create an environment of safety where the players can feel comfortable telling a story they want to tell without and relatability, so that the players can feel comfortable in telling a story that they want to tell without getting bogged down necessarily in accurate historical details. And some players will get off on that, like historical reenactors. That's their bag, right? And some people who really like the history of hip hop culture might.
Yeah, they'll already be armed.
Yeah, exactly. And they're not they're not the audience that you have an issue with.
Right.
So I guess my question is, what is your ideal audience? Do you want to introduce people to the culture that they don't know? Is this an educational aspect to the game?
I mean, so I've got two goals. So I see it as sort of being like a bridge, right? I want to have something that, for if you are kind of into role playing or sort of collab storytelling, improvising in the first place, and you're sort of interested in hip hop or sort of might want to kind of explore it or experience in a way, I want that to kind of be a thing where you could come in. But then I also want to, where I'm having it now is that I'm trying to, in this next revision, I'm trying to make it easier for someone who's never done it before, somebody who might already know about hip hop and enjoy the stuff, but is like weird about the approach of, sort of improvisational storytelling and group storytelling and role playing, try and lower those barriers. So sort of an intersect. People who are new to one end or the other are probably my prime people that I'd like to play the game. And anybody else is welcome.
Yeah, I could see it being really useful to people who don't role play a lot, because you're bringing in emotions and elements that they've just felt, and even if you transpose that onto I was thrown into, like, I was in the newspaper recently, which made me feel really uncomfortable, and something that I'm not used to, and having something like that happen to somebody in game, even if it was a night or something that is unrelatable, I could relate to the emotions that go along with that, and that would go along a lot with role playing in itself, like the essence of role playing.
That's an acting technique too, right? You when you want to convey a certain feeling, you look back on your own life and find something that matches the character's experience, and really position that in your own head and try and feel those emotions, but apply them to the new character. That's something that works really well on role playing, especially improv style.
I think that there's a place for, especially like learning something maybe about a culture that you don't know anything about. Like can sometimes be like a kind of infiltration sort of thing. Like you're kind of, maybe part of it is just like, you are uncomfortable. Like what you know about hip hop is like, just the really good hip hop stars, you know what I mean? Or the people that the mainstream hip hop stars maybe that you've heard. And, it can be intimidating to go, okay, I'm in this game, I'm going to be like, maybe, I'm deciding I'm going to be like an MC. So, and then I go, oh my God, I have to kind of battle against Eminem or something, and that's not where I want to be. But I wonder if you have, like, during your character creation, and I mean, this can be even regardless of the game, but having the one thing I thought was like, an icebreaker thing where you get your players to write like a 2 or 3 line cipher based on their day. So when they kind of sit there and they're like, okay, like, let's kind of flow off of each other and like, tell me about your day, give me 2 line, and just try to rhyme it even if it's stupid, you know what I mean? And then and then people can kind of like, once everybody kind of breaks down that barrier of like, like, okay, there's a lot to hip hop culture, right? Like there's, like you said, right? There's dancing, and there's MCing, and there's music, and there's DJing, and there's graffiti, and there's fashion, and you know what I mean? Like there's so much. And I think if you can do something that kind of like just gets everybody to kind of, there's a space where the trust can happen between players. Like if I'm brand new to hip hop and 3 people that I play with, or I'm going to play with, are kind of in it more than I am, it can be really intimidating for me to like, kind of do anything. But for us to kind of go, okay, let's do this and collaborate and kind of share and cheer each other on, I think that is a great way to create like an immediate, like, okay, no, I can do this, like I can kind of get into this space. It's the same thing when you run like even games like D&D or whatever, and you haven't ever your players have never played before, they can be really, in some cases, really intimidated, right?
Yeah.
They're like they lock up when they try to roll dice. They forget that you just roll d20s all the time. Whatever it's going to be, it can be really intimidating. But when you do things where you invite each of them to kind of like, your first session of D&D isn't like, okay, you're all 15th level heroes and you're going to fight 3 dragons. Good luck, right? The very first time you ever play, it's like, okay, you're a tiny little hero, you might kill some goblins, and hooray, that's it. And it's done in such a way that just like baby steps you into a larger picture, right? Where everybody gradually feels more comfortable with the system itself and in the world and the environment. And I wonder if something like that could be effective or used in such a way in the game where, okay, no, like I can get into this, and I'm interested in it for sure, and I'd love to do more. Like, the game sounds really cool. I love the culture a lot, and I'd love to try it out.
The tweaks, what you said there tweaked me a little bit. The sort of progression aspect reminded me of I think it was Rock Band 3 that did like a whole career mode. Where you started out like as a rock musician playing a dive bar, and then you work your way up to a giant stadium. Some progression aspect of that might be nice.
Yeah, that's the actual intent. Like in the game as it stands now,
start out in the basement.
you start out as unknown crew. Like, you're a group of friends. Right. And that's kind of one of the things. It's like, you start out these precepts of like, you're a group of friends, you're all interested in these different things, and you all have like problems, like real problems, like in playtests, people have had, sick, relatives that they were taking care of, or they're, trying to impress a member of the opposite sex, and find a girlfriend or boyfriend, or, make money, or, like real problems that people actually have. But then along the way, because part of the precepts is that you kind of, in trying to deal with your problems, it's all about, most of the game is actually about you dealing with the problems, but then as you deal with your problems, you acquire stress, and that stress can then spawn into creating more problems. And the way that you relieve stress and sometimes help fix problems is through art. Right, and then sort of like their whole in the current game, which I'm now tweaking just a little bit. I'm just tweaking how it's done, but it will still be an element of, there's actually a scene type of that is just a special you making your art kind of scene, and it's collaborative, but it's not literally you making a rhyme. It's sort of a bit abstract and collaborative, so you get the feel of making the art without actually having to feel that you have to, know how to rhyme like a, Eminem or Black Thought or KRS-One. Like, you don't have to be one of those guys.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's not it simulates the performance, and it's a kind of a group exercise that you do. So hard to explain without sort of showing the pages here. But
let me throw this out there. When you were talking about the game and people getting into it and try to kind of break them into that thing, and then the stuff you were just saying, I thought, when you're asking them like how's stuff going in their life or whatever, and they're like, oh, my grandma's sick, or my dog just died, or I won the lottery, or whatever it's going to be, right? I had a great donut for breakfast, or the one thing that I thought of was like, if one of the reasons that I play D&D, or I run D&D, or I play Shadowrun, or whatever I'm going to play, is so I can, well, maybe not all the time, but for me it's usually so I can like get away from these kind of like real experiences. And I wonder if like I'm not going to say this right, but I wonder if you've put like, the hurdle of getting into a culture that you might not know anything about, and then you've added the hurdle of like, all the stress in your life that you might be trying to escape while gaming. Now you've got like these 2 hurdles to get over, and I wonder if you do like if like the starter pack for the day, and I don't know anything about the game, so I'm just making stuff up. But the game master has like almost like those Trivial Pursuit cards with the questions, and you just go like, okay, I'm gonna draw one of these at random, and you throw down like an improv scenario.
Oh no!
It's this card. And
You want to say
Sorry?
that again, Matt? We lost you.
oh, okay. No, I was just saying that the game master would give each player like a random scenario that they could interact with that isn't necessarily like, okay, I know that your grandma's sick, we're basing the whole game on that. God, that's just another hurdle. So if you could give them like almost like an improv scenario that they could act off of, that might kind of free them up a little bit more and kind of, okay, I'm going to be creative with that, and now I can kind of like, I can kind of apply this into the rest of the game.
Well. Part of the thing is the. So I'll just give a bit more detail. Sort of the part of the idea is that you give an idea. So you describe like, hey, like one there'll be. So there's one element where it's just sort of like a session based, like, hey, like let's talk about like it's almost kind of the theme for if a session's like an episode, like it's a theme for the episode. So like, hey, what's like what's something that's got you like tripped up, right? Or what's something, right? And then what it's sort of meant to do. Like the next part is like you're not trying to make your character necessarily experience that, but you're trying to so like take that kind of how do you feel with this, and then what is your character? Then you kind of after you sort of give it, you flip it over to the characters and go, well, how does this character feel like a similar, like what's something in the kind of this world that could be making him feel a similar thing is in. Because the problem is, and I see what you're saying too, right? Like you're, hey, I'm having a bad thing. Let me go relive this now. Like that's not a thing that everybody's up for.
Right.
But if it's a thing of just to show that these, like in this role, these people living in this time aren't really any different from you or I, and they can feel the same kind of themes for the reason is sort of to kind of like almost like bleed in reverse. Like the kind of notion of like, oh hey, like you get this experience and then you feel it with your character, you feel what your character's feeling, right? You kind of feel something and then transfer it to the character is the goal. I'm going to have a chance to test it, so we'll see if my implementation works, but that's kind of the theory of it.
It sounds awesome. Like I said, I really like hip hop culture. I love kind of everything about it. I think everything about it is awesome. I love the art and everything. And I think it's a really cool concept for a game, and I definitely want to hear more about it. It's very intriguing.
Yeah, it definitely is. Now, I definitely have to say though, the whole concept of bleed in reverse, like that is, like for me, when I'm gaming, bleed is always there. Like it's a big part of my gaming. I have to be very careful choosing the kind of characters I play. I played one character one time where it was a very angry martial artist, and I would just be angry at everything for days afterwards after a session. So I learned that lesson.
Well, hopefully this will be a thing where you could put it in the box, right? Like you could take some of that stuff, you could feel it, and then put it into what that character is feeling.
Be cathartic.
Hopefully. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sounds very cool. So does that help any at all?
Yeah, no, this is great. It's great to talk about the stuff. I'm doing a bunch of writing now, trying to get it ready. So this is all great.
Cool. I think we'll move on if that's okay, unless you have.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Else. Okay.
Nope.
Who's next? Greg, Matt, volunteers.
I'll go. Sure.
Yeah. All right.
So this is a fairly new idea. I was originally thinking about something else, but
sorry. Let me just interrupt you for a sec. Let's get a little bit of an introduction from you.
Okay, yeah. So I'm Greg Spiridonov. Basically an amateur game designer. Pretty much I like taking apart systems and seeing how they work and trying to figure out ways that I would like to put them back together.
Let me stop you just there. You're designing a game, right?
Yes.
So you're a game designer.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So
sure.
you can just leave the amateur at the door. You're just a game designer.
Yeah, sure.
Carry
But
on.
so basically, I've right now I work in computers, doing a lot of mapping and stuff on computers. So I do a lot of programming, which has moved into game design. But I've also got into board games, and I've always liked role playing. And so at any given time, I probably have like several wannabe projects. But the one thing that struck me, it was literally something somebody on Twitter mentioned a while ago, and it just got my mind rolling, which is the project that I've thought of right now, or like that I'm working on now anyway. It was basically a heist game. And right now I've got the basis of what I would like to see, but mechanics and things like that are very preliminary. So the basic idea, first of all, I want to give a shout out to the guy who originally came up with the idea, and I've talked to him, and he said that I was willing to run with it. So I took that of my own accord. But it's at Bleecker, and he basically, they were talking about heist games, heist RPGs out there, and so what he came up with was an idea of starting, with the heist and going back to so you start out with everything you need to know, and then going along with your planning first, and then working through planning and seeing what goes on, what goes right, what goes wrong, and then finally going to the day of the heist. The idea that I've been working with is basically that. So you're first. We have
a
James.
new person.
Hey, yeah.
Hey,
Oh,
James.
Quinn Murphy. Hey, guys.
what's up?
I thought we were doing 7:30 Central Standard Time, so I apologize for being late.
Oh, yes. I did not say that, did I? Yeah. Yes. All right. Well, Greg was just going through one of his ideas here, and then we'll catch you up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So as I was saying, a heist game. So the premise is that you would start out with, I can't really think about how detailed, but at the beginning anyway, I want there to be a fairly specific idea of the type of things that need to happen for the heist to go well. And from there, you would want to go to a number of phases where you're doing planning. So trying to acquire equipment and trying to persuade somebody to give you details or plans or get a key card or something. And I would like all those to be, open-ended role-playing. So kind of like Questlandia's situational role-playing, where each character has an event. I would like something like that. But anyway, so you go through your planning, and then finally the end event would come down to kind of like a snap action, something to do really quick, where you can define what happens. Did it work? Yes or no? A slight role playing of the actions as you go through to finally figure out what happens. Basically, the big thing that I'm looking for now is I'm trying to fit some sort of mechanic to that. And what I was thinking so far, I kind of had 2 or 3 ways. One way I was thinking was sort of a something to do with cards, because I like the idea of fitting a heist game would work well with a gambling aspect, which everybody associates with cards. And I like the fact that because I want something to do with, there's good and bad things, you could fit black versus red being good or bad. And then there's a couple of different, the suits can be changed around. What did I have? basically you could have like you have sort of like a pile of cards. So you see the first, like in your plan, the heist, you could have different sections of the heist. So getting through the door, but instead of knowing what's going on, you could have one card that you see, one card face up, and a number face down.
Style.
Yeah, and then have something associated with those cards. And then so to go through that is somebody would have to be able to play a higher card, and from there they'd be able to see the next card in line and things like that. And then in that sense, I think it would come out as basically you're planning the story. And so I don't know, I haven't worked that out yet. The other idea I've had, I'm not sure if anybody has played the video game called Tharsis.
No, I want to.
It's a space game where it's dice based, and I really like the idea, and I've wanted to try to bring it into something other than that game, because I find that game it's really good, but it's very randomized, and it also like ramps up difficulty. And I just like the mechanics of it. Basically, what it is it has a lot of things are going wrong in a spaceship, and in any given section, you have to send crew members in to fix them. The crew members have a dice pool that they get to roll, and then in any given section, there's a number that you have to, or there's a number of dice that you have to roll to fix the problem. And so there's like, if you needed a 2 and a 4, you would have like 4 dice in your pool to deal with, so you can choose to roll all 4, and you use those dice, so you can't use them again, but you have to try to get that required roll, and then anything left over you try to put into other aspects that can help you. So like for Tharsis, each character has a specialty. So like medics have like a specialty 5 or 6, they can heal. There's also a research system where any leftover dice, you can fill in the research spots. There's a spot from 1 to 6. And any leftover dice you can slot into those 1 to 6 numbers, and you basically draw like a card that has a special ability. But so I was thinking it could be something like that, where you see what's happening and you kind of see the rolls that you need, and there could be wild dice that you haven't rolled yet that you might come across, or even as you try to plan, if something goes wrong, that dice could go to against you in the end, and it could make things worse for you, whereas you're trying to make it better, type of thing. That's kind of where I am.
I like the comparison to Tharsis. I can definitely see it working well in a heist aspect. So, like, the best kind of heists are where everything falls apart, like just completely. So having to overcome all these difficulties as you're trying to get away with the loot, I think is perfect. One thing I would like you to take a look at is Jason Morningstar did a game that is about the aftermath of a heist, and it's designed to be played in a car while you're driving somewhere, called Out of Dodge.
Yeah, you mentioned it, and I looked it up, and yeah, I read some reviews on it. It was one on Shut Up and Sit Down that I read that went through the process and how it goes, and it's a really cool idea, and I really like it.
Things that are particularly interesting in it is that it has the different participants in the heist have triggers that affect other players. But nobody has all the information at once. So as things happen, different things trigger, and just sort of you have serendipity, I guess. Things just happen out of the combination of what people do.
I kind of like what you said earlier, the card game aspect. I like card games a lot, and I immediately thought of something like a deck building game, like the Penny Arcade Gamers Good versus Evil, or even actually the Penny Arcade Thornwatch game that they're making right now. I thought one of the things that I thought would be really cool would be, so you have each person is like, I keep picturing like Ocean's 11 or whatever, right? And so you have each person as like you're hired to this job because of your specialization in like disguises, right? In like being the heavy, in driving a race car, in safe cracking, like the escape car, and safe cracking. Let's say those are the jobs. So each of those people has like a specific set of cards or abilities that they can play. But in order for this planning thing, the big part of it is the planning, right? So you would say, okay, well, this master of disguise has to go like get the disguise. So they like go and they go to get the disguise and they play their cards to try to get the disguise. But if something happens, they get like the game master would give them like a monkey wrench card that would be like, oh, you have a problem. Like you talk to the wrong guy to sell the thing or whatever it is. The fence is the wrong person. So you have a monkey wrench card as a player. And then when you get back to your team, you have like 3 ability cards that you haven't used yet. And you have to put the monkey wrench card into the major draw deck. So if 5 people come together and they have like 3 good cards and each has 1 monkey wrench card, they all get shuffled together. And as the heist goes off, it's like, okay, here's this challenge. The safe has to be cracked. Flip the card over, and it's like, okay, I got the safe cracker. Whew. Okay, we get past the first step. And say the challenge of this heist is like a 10. So you have to get 10 objectives to succeed. So the first one is safe cracking. Like, okay, oh man, this is a level 2 safe crack, so I need to get 2 of these crack dice. So the safe cracker's like, all right, I'm going to go again. And they flip it over, and it's a monkey wrench that they got from the other thing. And suddenly they're like, oh, shoot. Sorry, we have like, I need 2 successes and I just lost a success because of the monkey wrench. So then the players can like pool their remaining resources to overcome a monkey wrench, or maybe not even, you want them to stay there, overcome the monkey wrench, or just like, okay, you get them to kind of socially just go, okay, what's a better way? Like, how can we get around this? This is another thing.
Take a different angle at the problem.
That's very similar to, and I like it for this reason, to Will Heinmeicher's Dark. He's got a similar monkey wrench system where, because characters are made out of a deck of cards, the jokers that are in that deck, when they come into your hand and when you play them, they go over to the game master, and they are in the game master deck now, and they can play them against you. So you have to make a strategy call between, do I effectively lower my hand size by 1 and hold on to this, or do I give this almost guaranteed critical failure over to the game master to, mess me over later on in the game?
And that would be cool. That would be a cool way for the players to like, just, like, again, the Ocean's 11 thing, like, oh my God, this guy is a master contortionist to fit inside this little bucket or whatever, right? So they could sneak him into a vault before it closes. Well, it's great, but like, he gets a Charlie horse or something, you know what I mean? And it's just like, or right, there's always something bad that'll happen. Like, even if you're an expert in everything, you forgot this, or you overlook something in your excitement. And I like that thing where in the Penny Arcade Thornwatch game, it's called a wound. And so you have in your hand, you have a wound card. And some players have the ability to remove wound cards. So one of the guys could be like, a fixer or whatever. And it's like, okay, guys, I can remove 3 monkey wrenches from this thing, but I need your help to do these kinds of things, right? So the players, I just like giving those monkey wrenches over to the DM or the game master or whatever, because it's like, okay, you guys are so close, but boom, like you have to deal with this, and I think things like that can be kind of cool ways to one of the things that I like about it is to keep the aspect of randomness. It's like, I imagine it's part of the reason you do a heist would be not only to get the bullion or whatever, but also like, okay, we got everything counted for. This is the perfect job, right? Tony, did you shut off those cameras? Oh God, I knew there was something we didn't do.
Yeah, that's the type of thing that I want too. Is the unexpected. Something goes wrong, but we don't know what it is yet, and that's a perfect way to do it. So you're just going through the cards and realizing what's happening.
Yeah.
The other thing that I thought of immediately when you started talking about this was, well, 2 things. One was, it sounds like Shadowrun without machine guns, which is cool, because a lot of Shadowrun sometimes is like, I'm just going to build a heist and the players have to spend forever figuring out how to get into it. But the other thing that I thought of that I think is another like a way to limit the available card pool or whatever is like time frame. And what I mean by that is like, is this a heist that happens in 2016 or is it a heist that happens in 1110? Like, if it's like 200 years ago or 300 years ago, the available tools, like you don't have key cards, right? You don't have like, you have it's more like social espionage where I'm trying to trick the guards or whatever it is, right? So you could like augment the player's ability to carry out the heist based on the time or the era that the heist occurs in, right? Is it like 500 years ago and you're trying to break into the Tower of London? Is it 500 years from now and you're trying to break into the Tower of London, right? Like you have different skills and tools that the players may have to circumvent. And I thought like immediately, I just thought of like, just old movies, like even the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes series, right? Where they're like, imagine staging a heist in that kind of thing. And I think it's a cool idea, man. I think it's got really cool things to it.
I think a couple things. So like one, and I guess it's just I'm going to be the touchy-feely feelings guy for the session here. Is a good thing I think to think of is what, and you've already touched on it a little bit, but it'll help you know which mechanics to use. Is what do you want the characters to be expressing and the players to be feeling in the end there, right? And we've touched on some of the themes of like, hey, it's like our good, like I think the thing of sort of, hey, here's all our good plans gone out the window.
Yeah.
Right. And then how we try and pluck them out of the window. Right. And so, but then it gets back to those specific feelings like, of feeling like, it gives you sort of this emotional kind of thing of, hey, we have mastery of we've made this cool plan. Right. And then we're like, desperation as if things start to fall apart and, and then panic is like, we can't like seem to find control. And hopefully, we start picking it back up and then we climb up mastery, right? So this peak and valley, and that should let you, like, if you kind of if you can take those emotions and see where you want them, like you can almost sort of place them on the kind of cycle of the game, then that'll let you know where you want to do certain kinds of mechanics or what kind of things you want to do there. I think that I find that to be a helpful guide when I'm like, what is all this? Like I have 20 million things to do. Then I just sort of focus back on what I'm expecting and what I'm trying to get people to feel. And then it helps me, like, you get to throw 30 things out immediately once you know that. Second thing is I think to me, the key on heist stuff, actually going to Shadowrun, right? One of the things, key things between a good and bad Shadowrun adventure in my mind is the pacing of the heist, right? Like if you're in one of those things where you're like, okay, like you're making like a bunch of rolls and like trying to find there, and there's like a million like failed, this and that, like it can drag on pretty fast, right? But if everything's moving at a nice clip and you're like, okay, we're here and now we're at the door and then now we're ready for our plans to go awry, right? Because that's this ultimate what everybody wants. They want to know their plans are essentially good enough. And what you call the leverage RPG does this really, really well, really well. And so, like, hey, we want to know our plans are basically good, and we just want to see what goes wrong. And you could even allot for that. Like, if you did a thing where you just have you could just have your plans be timers, right? Like as you discuss, like you have the info, and everybody's out there planning, and everybody basically just writes down okay, first we're going to do this. And then we're going to do that. And then we're going to do this, right? And then you've just got like the plan list and like any supporting stuff. And then you're like ready to go and watch it all just blow up.
So I think starting from a plan that is basically good and then just that is table stakes for the beginning of the game. You start with this perfect plan and then it just self-destructs.
Right. Yeah, like it's going to blow up. Right, like it's like it's just a matter of what it is and like whose fault it's going to be, right? And you
go ahead.
Even as a twist, could make it about the emotional impact. Like you could assume, like, hey, not only do we have a plan, but we have a basic like honor and trust among thieves, right? And then like what the game could be about, at least in part, is about how, hey, I thought you did that thing. No, I thought you were going to do that thing, right? And as the plan implodes, the people implode and try and scrabble with their relationships with each other. Like you could like make that a whole other exploration. But go on, sir.
It would be cool to have it so that each player gets like at some point during the heist they get a target of like, this thing's coming after you, right? Like, so, oh shit, you forgot to close the door. You forgot to do something behind it, and it's specific to them. And the player can play a card. Maybe it's a monkey wrench or something like that. They can actually like get rid of the monkey wrench, like get it off their back, but it adds it to the other, like one random other player's pool.
Oh, passing the buck.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and then like I love your idea because then it's like okay, okay guys, if I'm gonna overcome this is cool. Like I forgot to shut off the security cameras. Shit. Okay, I'm gonna shut them off. Okay. Now in order to do that though, I have to give the bad news to you because in a real world heist, it's like okay, I'm gonna go down this hallway. What crap? You can't. I haven't shut off the thing yet. Okay, wait. That suddenly puts our schedule back, right? And so now your teammate is like, oh god, now I have to deal with this. And then eventually, like you said, either everybody works out and you get all your goals done and they're proper, or at the very end, one guy has 7 monkey wrenches and you all hate each other, which is the sign of the game.
No, you just hate that guy. You just leave him behind with all the.
I mean, this might even be a different game, but since you're gambling, why not bet chips? Why not? Everybody starts out with an even number of chips, and some people are going to lose that bet, and they might even drop out of the heist, and you have to burn them.
Yeah.
Oh man, and if there's like different rounds of action and people sort of pit in for their stuff, like, sort of blind and sort of go, hey, I got mine, right? And, and then it's like, oh, God, like lowest guy, like, like something happens for the highest guy and something happens for the lowest guy. And then if you also add in somewhere in there an element of, because when things go wrong in a heist, people get nabbed, right? They get caught by the cops, they get in like trouble, they get like broken down, right?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you're just like, oh, hey, sorry about your luck, friend. Looks like you got busted by the cops. See ya, right? And it's sort of like rats fleeing the ship. And you can even vary it per location. If you that was the last thought I had is that I think you should, because this will help you take, like we have a bunch of ideas for you, right? And if you contain them to locations like design, a location like a casino, right? Do like a Ocean's 11 and it's a casino and it's a set of things for the casino. And then you can use like a whole sort of script of mechanics. But then if there's another one that's like a bank heist, right? And then that's got like a whole other kind of set of events. And you can then just have a list. And so you can just pick a heist and then you don't know exactly how things are going to go wrong.
I like the idea of giving the DM like a, like you said, I like the theme thing, right? So it's a casino, or it's like Tower of London, or whatever, the proceeds from the bake sale at the nursing home, whatever it's going to be. But what I like is like, okay, we're going to pick one of say 10 adventures that we're going to heist, and the game master gets the ability to like, they have X points, right? And they can spend those points to like buy. Like here's the objectives. These are the things you have to accomplish during the course of the thing. But then the game master gets their own list, and it's like these are ways I can negatively modify each step. And the players
roll.
Yeah, and the players have no idea what those are. The players are like, okay, we need disguises. We need to break the surveillance equipment. We need to like drill in from the building next door. We need like something to carry all the bullion out, right? So those are like the 5 steps in this thing. And then the game is just like, okay, that's cool. I have a chart basically that I can roll on, and it's like, or whatever, and it's like, if you're going to do this, here's 3 options. And the only reason I say 3 options is because you don't want it so that it's like, we're going to do this heist. Oh, great. We know what all the challenges you're going to put on us are. So if you can just go, okay, for each of these challenges, here's 5 potential ones it could be, then the players are like, okay, we know this. Oh, crap. Now we're going to drill in from the side building. Well, the building is suddenly, it's normally an empty building, but now there's a tenant in it. Oh, crap, I got to deal with that. Like the drill bit goes dull. Like how you get rid of the debris from the thing. You know what I mean? Like there's a whole bunch of like use those as negative modifiers that the players have to. That could be those monkey wrenches, right? That the players have to. They get and they're like, I'm almost through. Here, you take the monkey wrench. We're through the wall. Okay, we're past this step. You know, and then it moves further along.
And I like your idea too, because it lets you also give the GM a character, right? If it's a bank heist, he's like the bank manager, or like like the chief security officer in like a casino. He might be like a pit boss, right? And so like he gets to so like his or her tools are like different in each scenario. And like there are things that the GM can or can't do, and something it might be like a research facility, and like the GM's like an AI, right? And they're like the sort of artificial intelligence boss, so like they can.
That's a cool idea.
Give them like a kind of role in there. So
So
basically, you've got a really great idea.
Yeah, I think it's awesome.
There's a game called Soth, S-O-T-H, that uses a similar sort of mechanic where you have the players have a point economy, and as they do things that they're supposed to do, they're fine. They all take the players all have regular roles in like a small town, so they have their day-to-day duties. They have to do their, go open the library. They have to go to work. They have to do all their things. If they don't do all their things because they're terrible people and members of a cult and trying to raise the demon lord something,
Hypothetically,
no, it's part of the game. So you do shirk your duties all the time, but if you do that, you generate basically bad karma points. I forget the actual term, but you don't know how many you generate or when you generate them, but the GM keeps track of that, and then the GM has a list of stuff they can spend the points on. So as they do things, you can take a normal NPC that just comes up during play, elevate that normal NPC to investigator status, for instance. So I had one game where I had it was a little 9-year-old boy who wanted to get into the library to take out a book, and the player playing the librarian shot the door in his face because she had to go to the dark ritual and sacrifice something. Well, the kid got pissed and he got elevated to investigator status, and then followed the characters around, spied on them, stole some of their secret ritual ingredients, ended up summoning a demon from the depths of hell on his own, who then killed the child and got the FBI after the player characters. And this was all happening basically in my head, and all the players saw was the aftermath of suddenly this kid that was at the library is now, his corpse is dismembered in some woods somewhere. And now the FBI is after us, and they think that we did it because the tracks lead back to the library and the kid's fingerprints are all over, and it was a big old mess. But
I could see, so working with the cards too, I could see something like secret roles, or even secret you playing a card and saying, I'll take care of the cameras, sure, and you don't show anybody that you are, but you could be getting rid of your monkey wrench and handing it to the
sabotage.
GM.
Yeah, you
because I think that works really well with the idea of a heist and a bunch of criminals anyway.
The game master is
one player shuffled into their deck is the black spade, and it's oh boy, that means you betrayed the party. Good luck.
The game master has an ability that they can play outside of their rounds that are your wife calls and you forgot to pick up the groceries, or the dog, you forgot to let the dog out, and you're gonna, or whatever it is, you didn't pay rent or whatever. It's oh crap, I gotta go do that, and so you're just okay, here you go. And the only way to get rid of it is to give the game master back monkey wrenches. That's a cool idea.
Yeah. That'd be great.
Yeah. Could we play this tomorrow? This sounds awesome.
I'll get to work on it.
All right.
Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds great.
All right. Well, we got a few people that haven't talked then. I promised to get you up to speed, James. So did you figure it out? I feel like you probably did. So we're just talking about stuff we're working on, blockages that we're running into with our own games, and trying to help each other work through them. Is kind of how it's going. Quinn talked
I got
about
the
his
gist.
game. Quinn talked about Five Fires. Greg talked about his as unnamed heist game. That still leaves Matt and myself and you. So,
Cool.
I will go now if
sure.
that's all right. So I am, and I'm not an amateur game designer only because Andy said you're not allowed to say that. So I'm a game designer, I guess. I have made a game called Smash: The Way of the Street, and it is a living card game. And the point of the game, or the whole thing of the game, is you and your opponents are rival gang members in a city in the future. And the object is to remove or take all of your opponents' their hangouts for their basically their gangs. And if you don't have any hangouts, you lose the game.
Cool.
So yeah, I've made the cards. I've got like cards. I've got them sleeved. I've had them printed at Kinko's. I've done play tests I brought 20 people together at a local game shop. I printed out tons of decks, lots of dice, rules and instructions. I took it to PAX East and to the indie game area and ran it through, I think, 5 or 6 people who all had fun. Like it has flavor text. It's kind of like, it's a little Magic, it's a little Hearthstone, it's a little Shadow Fist, it's a little like, all these old card games. And so people who play it like it. But my issue is that I have crippling self-doubt. and so there's some parts of the game that of the 20 people who played it, like everybody loved it, and they, I got them to even fill a survey or questionnaire or whatever. And then, but there's a couple parts of it that I was like, that part is like a little confusing, right? And it's specifically, there's a combat aspect of the game. It's not necessarily confusing, but like, if you have a guy who has 5 defense and a guy who has 4 power, when they hit each other, the dude deals 4 damage to him, so his 5 goes down to a 1, and you have to keep track with that stuff on the cards themselves. Like you have to adjust, that kind of thing. So that kind of thing is kind of honestly, the players didn't really seem to mind because you're using just D6s for the whole thing basically. But that part to me bothered me. So what I did was, the best way to fix a game is to design a brand new game. So I designed a new game, and it's called Kitsunaga. And the point of it is very similar. You are rival leaders of a ninja gangs. You are competitive ninja. The Kitsune are ninja foxes, and the Naga are ninja serpents. And what there is like a group of targets you have to assassinate, and you play your cards kind of like Klondike Solitaire, in those rows. You play your cards down those things, and each of the ninja has like a number on it that's their attack power. So one guy has 2 and another guy has 3, and the target you play it against has like a defense of 10. So what you want to do is you want to stack your guys up, and once you hit that number, you can take them and get rid of them, and then you want to get 4 of the 7 targets defeated.
So I would like to interject for a second.
Sure.
Have you thought about playing it as a real-time card game like Brawl?
That was something that came to mind.
No.
Brawl is I have it right behind me somewhere. It's a crazy card game. I think it was Cheap Ass Games.
Yes, yeah, it's one of my favorite games of theirs.
Yeah,
awesome.
It plays really quickly. So you drop cards down, and then you have a base, and then you put a card above it or a card below it. Above is like on your opponent's side, below is your own side, and you stack hits on them, and whoever has the more hits gets the point for that base. Right. But you don't take turns. You just
Oh,
throw
you just
cards
do it.
down
Right.
as fast as possible, and there are blocks that block the stack from
Right.
growing any further.
And you can only play hits on the same. You can only play hits of the same color. Like you have different colors of hit, and so you can only play a red hit on a red hit. So if I draw a blue one, I have to put it on somewhere else. And you start with, like, in most things, like 3 bases or so, and then you can play stuff like clear cards, and everybody has a different kind of set. And it's weird because you think at first, oh, it's just about playing the card as fast as possible. But when you start to play, it's actually a lot of times you like play until you get like a clear, and then you might hold until they build up something, and then just play it and like wait. And that real time starts to become like a very tense, like medium strategy.
I see.
You also
So sorry,
Ooh.
just continue off.
no problem. You can only hold one card in your hand, so you have a discard pile in your hand, and that's the only thing you can play from, either at the top of your deck or the top of the discard pile. That's it. So there's a less decision making that happens, but it makes it way more tense because you at some point you just want to start burning through your deck to get to the 3 freeze cards that are always at the bottom, which ends the game.
Right. Yeah.
We'll play it sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to play it. I'd love to try it. This game has like something that kind of gets around that sort. Well, maybe not gets around that, but the interesting mechanic is because you're playing ninja. So what you do is you play things like soldiers or whatever, like just kind of regular people who are on your team, right? So bandits, mercenaries, soldiers, whatever, and they all have this number that's trying to total the thing. But what you can also do is in your hand you can draw ninja cards. And ninja cards are exactly the same as the other guys. They have like a power of 3 or 1 or whatever it's going to be. But what makes them interesting is you have to play them face down, so your opponent doesn't know what their power is. So if my target is 10 and this guy's 5 and 2, I could play a ninja that's like 0 power, but they don't know that. So they're never sure how close I am to taking the target. And there's like an aspect of like bluffing in there, you know what I mean? Where it's like, oh God, like, do I spend my currency or whatever to be able to play this card on this to take that target? Or is he close or she close enough that they can just take it next turn, you know? And it's like, oh God, which do I attack this target instead then? Like you have to kind of plot out your stuff. I really like the concept of that brawl game though. I'd love to give it a try.
Well, you could real time like that mechanic in terms of if you get like, let's say you limited the amount of bluffs, right? Like a character could get like so many bluffs, or a faction gets so many bluffs a game, right? Where you can just go, okay, here's like, I've got 3 bluffs, and you're like, okay, you're playing the cards, and you're like, okay, I'm going to play that one down, and then another character can get so many calls per game, right? And like if you call a bluff and it's, I can say like I call the bluff and go, okay, I got that card, and I move through, and you can call it or not call it, and if I call it and get you, then that's like gives me some other bonus. But if, I, call it and I don't get you, another thing like, sort of, in on top of the real time, sort of adding this, like real consequences for the bluffing. I don't know. Just,
Yeah. That's a cool idea. Yeah. The whole reason I'm designing a second game is so that I can take that mechanic and put it back into the first game.
right.
But then my problem is that I have 2 games that I've started. So I just have
need to make a third game.
That's really it, and then never stop.
That'll solve everything.
But the other problem with this is that that I created Smash like about a year and a half ago, or a year ago, I guess. I tested it last summer, or 2 summers ago, I guess. Yeah, it's the fall now. Anyway, but I just completely shelved it. Like I just got like this kind of crippling self-doubt for like, I don't know, man. Like, even though that went really well, I think it was like, okay, well, what do I do now? You know what I mean? Like, people have been asking like, are you going to kickstart this? Like, I'm not even thinking about that. Like, do I do more playtesting? Do I do, do I do all the art myself? Like, and so that, I think that the eventuality of the next step was part of what me lost. So, what's easier than doing all that stuff? Not doing any of that stuff, And then eventually, like I think it was just that I realized I couldn't get rid of this game making bug that I have So then like 3 months later, whatever, is when I started kind of like, you know. But I don't know what it is, and maybe it was this, but just today actually, or yesterday, I started thinking about Smash again, and I started like going through all my old docs, and I've started like getting my feet back into the game and re-looking at it and trying to. I think I'm going to try to make it into an actual thing, but it's a case of like, you know, that kind of like overcoming, you know, my own inner gremlins, you know, or all that kind of stuff to try to make it into a real boy.
Well, one thing that might help with the logistics aspect of it. I've seen quite a few people doing the print-on-demand card decks, like Derek Gore has Hope in Humanity. Jason Star has a Juggernaut that's done as a print-on-demand, and I don't know how well they're doing, but I've ordered at least those two, and
doesn't Daniel Solis do like most of his stuff? Like, I think he does most of his stuff. Doesn't he do it like print-on-demand?
I think you're right about that.
Yeah, like he does almost all his whole like library. That I think he might print some like, you know, hard copies to, you know, like take to conventions and stuff. But I mean, I think and he does pretty well. You know,
it's pretty cheap to keep digital stock, at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. You know, the other thing I'd say too is like I've definitely felt what you're feeling like now. Like I've had many games that have like sat around and like literally like Five Fires is a thing that I like. It's been like a couple years since I started on it, and like literally because of Five Fires is why social fiction exists, and like all of these other, because like trying to get where I wanted to go, like forced me to like well, geez, what do I do with that? Well, and like I built it. Like sometimes like the correct answer is to build a game,
right?
To answer a specific thing. Right, like you're just like, hey, I'm going to build this thing, cool, and I'm going to build this thing, right? And so I built like a gazillion games since I started Five Fire. Like it's actually caused all this other output on it, and now I'm finally getting back, like with everything I've learned, I'm now incorporating it back in, and it's just sort of, you know, I mean, as long as your future and hopes isn't banked on this game, right? Like you know, I'm assuming you're living like in a completely different way, then take your time.
Sure, yeah.
Well, it's the core of prototyping, right?
Right.
Like, if you have a question, make a prototype to answer that question. Just make sure that you state it before you start, because I see that happening a lot with video game development prototyping. They just make a prototype and they don't have a question formulated in any way, so they don't know when they get their answer. They just keep going, and like there's no end. But if you set, like, actually write down what question am I going to answer with this prototype, then make that prototype answer that question, then you can get back to what you were doing.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
And I know for our design process, we lost confidence like midway through our first role-playing game that Kat and I did, and our solution to that was design a game that was a lot lower stakes for us, and take that through to the publishing process where we kickstarted it. So my solution is just take another game all the way through. Like, even if that's like a micro RPG that's one page, just to show yourself that you can do it, and then you could go through all those different stages of development with an idea that maybe you haven't spent so much time building up in your head, and it'll be easier to come back to the other one when you're finished with it.
Yeah, the idea is that you care more. Like, so, you know, if you care a lot about a thing, it's easy to it's easy for that to become very difficult. That's another thing that slowed me down with Five Fires, is because I really care about it. So I don't want to like F it up.
I think you find too that taking a break from it too can help. Because I think when you are working on something for a long time, you get into a certain mindset of how you really wanted it to work and how it's supposed to be, and then taking that step back, when you come back to it, you see it more from like almost from a different set of eyes. Like, you're not in that mindset anymore. So looking back at it, you can see it differently and realize that actually it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And
Yeah, I don't know how many times I've beaten my head against a problem in the afternoon, only to just leave in frustration, and I come back in the morning and solve it in 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's kind of
Yep.
the thing. It's the same with me. Like I've been like, oh god, once I backed away and I kind of forgot about it, it was like thinking like, oh my god, there's so many problems with this. There's so much stuff that I didn't like or whatever. And so today I've been going through my old I have a ton of Google Docs that are all just cards and whatever. And I'm like, oh, a lot of these things actually, just need to be printed and played, and see how abusive they are. You know what I mean? Like it's just a case of like you said, I think it's just okay. I just need to get myself kind of my head back into it and mess around with it again. And I think having that kind of healthy break for a little bit, I think has definitely helped me. And I think it will help in the future for sure.
well, I think that's the idea of a living card game too. Anyway, is that you're always adding to it. So I think at least what I see happening with a lot of them are that even if they create a problem like an unbalance, it's usually in the next set they work to solve that issue, which usually creates another issue. But that's the concept of a living card game, is you can keep coming out with new things and it changes the aspect. And when you get a big enough amount of cards there, things are going to be happening in such a different way anyway, and it'll just take somebody to be unique and come up with a new thing that will happen. I know with a lot of, when you get into competitive play, a lot of times people just copy off the last guy who won a competition,
Right.
and then use that until somebody finds the way to beat that, and then that's the new deck, and then and it just goes on from there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Cool.
All right, that'll help out at all?
I think it did. Yeah, for sure. I think I've got some good ideas, and I think it's helped me kind of, like I said, I'm kind of getting back into, looking at my old notes and stuff, and I think it's bolstered me to keep looking through it and keep going with it. So it's good.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Now, I said at the beginning of the show that you missed, James, that I'll go last because I kind of got some help with my game last week on the pilot. So if you wanted to take the reins, you're welcome to.
Oh, sure.
We had everybody do sort of a quick intro before they launched into their game idea. So if you wanted to do that, we can probably
Absolutely. My name is James D'Amato. I'm mostly notable because of the One Shot Podcast Network. It's a network of RPG and game-related podcasts and other sort of wave content that you can enjoy at your computer or on your cell phone. We play like role-playing games, and we do a tour of different role-playing games, just about a new one every month, with improvisers from Chicago. So if you're interested in taking in a variety of games and seeing how different people play, I think that's a lot of fun, and you should check that out. But also, I have started in the past couple of years after starting the podcast, me and my best friend Kat have started designing games together. We did a game called Noisy Person Cards, which we kickstarted and is right now at the printer, and we're waiting to get our proof copy back from them, and then we'll be able to order the rest of everything and start shipping everything out, which is very exciting. But in the meantime, I've been working on role-playing games. And the two that I'm sort of grappling with right now, the first one was inspired by my day job and by a game that I put out for Pay What You Want on drive-thru called Millennial Apartment Hunters. This new game is called Call Center, the role-playing game, to that. But it is a satirical, cathartic horror game where you work at a call center and you get calls from 3 terrible customers, and then the people who played those 3 terrible customers are your 3 bosses who give you a performance review. So Yeah, I mean, it's certainly like a lot of people go, well, why would I ever seek out an experience like that? And I'm not quite sure that I've answered that question yet, except that Millennial Apartment Hunters, my game about hunting for an apartment when you don't have a lot of money to hunt for an apartment, was like very funny. So I think this one will be funny. I haven't got a chance to play test it yet.
It sounds like a black humor kind of.
Yeah, it's real. It gets real dark. So the way it works, you decide as a group, what kind of call center is this, and then one person will be selected to be the customer service representative, and everybody else is going to be playing customers that call in. And I've got random charts for people to roll on for that. Everybody would roll a d6 for an attitude, for a want. And like attitudes are like offensive, cagey, or confused, or sympathetic. Something that will sort of inform how you want the customer service representative to see you and how you act on the phone. And the want sort of guides, like gives you a little bit of a seed for the problem they're going to be calling to this customer service representative with. And I try to make those like very simple concepts to understand, but like sort of meaty and will definitely get out of control very quickly. So like the first one that people can roll is something impossible. So they'll call in wanting something that there's absolutely no way that this customer service representative is going to be able to fulfill.
Right.
Or something they don't understand, or something they know they can't have. Like all of them have inherent built into them, like, man, even if they're the nicest person in the world, you want to give them everything, you can't. And that's built into the conceit of the game. And the actual play, you're just role-playing out this conversation. While you're role-playing the conversation, there will be 5 tokens on the table, and ideally those tokens will be star-shaped. But those tokens are for the customer. For the customer, they are your customer satisfaction. So every time the representative satisfies you, you will take a star from them. And at the end, that will be your exit survey star rating that you gave them. But to the customer service representative, those stars are their will to live. So you can try and please these customers and like jump through hoops to like get them to understand that they can't have these things, or actually break company policy to give them what they want and get rid of them. But when you do that, you start to lose your will to live. And at the end of the game, at the end of the 3 calls, you have to have like an average, I think, of like 3 stars not to get fired. But if you dip below a certain amount of stars, like you had a terrible day and you don't have a will to live anymore. Will to live is like, I'm thinking of like different terms for that, but that's where I am with that. And then the like performance review at the end really doesn't affect anything unless they're going to get fired. That would be the point where the bosses fire them, but the bosses always like have a list of things like they want people to go through, like they can express a disappointment or offer unhelpful advice or get the employee to admit a weakness that they have. So it's all this, like after you go through this onslaught of terrible phone calls, you then have to sit through a performance review where people will point out obvious things to you, or if you did well, they will get you to find areas where you didn't do well and drill down on that and sort of, recreate life. So
now, is it just one person each play who plays the call center technician?
Yeah, one person will play the customer service representative.
Could you do it like and I'm just sort of like, sort of thinking a while, could you do it kind of like where people are each other, or like a triangle, kind of like I'm your boss and then like there's a, Andy's like your customer, and like, you could take the performance reviews. You could actually like literally have like a cruel little survey, like, like tidy, like, friendliness, or, attention to detail, how long you took on the call, and like kind of ratings. And so like I could be sitting there as you're talking with Andy, say, and like, like rating you, and then I could go give you the unhelpful advice, right? And and like go through and just to increase your frustration, no matter what the customer has, you have some target goal, like, oh, you've not been friendly enough lately. We really need you to like focus on your friendliness.
I love your idea of the useless metrics. The like how long the call was, how many times you made a joke, like completely useless things that call centers would track. Like how many times did you push this product to the person? Right. That don't reward any of the things that like you're really supposed to be doing. And so like you're going to get things where someone's asking for the impossible, and you're going to be rated on how fast you like drop the call. And so you're not going to like get a chance to explain it to them. And then if you have that, then we can rotate where now I'm the call center person, and then everybody sort of gets put in that seat, like, and we all get the perspective of the different people.
I feel like that.
I do like that. I do like that a lot. It's certainly less arduous, I think, than the system that I've worked out as it exists.
I think the boss should always have to be the boss should be the next person's, or the agent should be the boss's caller, just so that they, or their boss or something, so that they can get back at them. They have the power to then critique them or something. I really like that.
Yeah. Great idea. And then like if you use the paperwork, like the customer satisfaction, like you can get a customer satisfaction survey instead of just the stars. And so like the customer can like fill out a thing, and they could be like, that was terrible, but like they could just sort of ham it up in their like thing that they review. And so then that almost is like when you're the call center person, you get your performance review and like the customer rating, and it's like almost like your artifacts of play. Like these crazy things you have.
I like the idea of the customer giving you those stars, but then I think that I think that your boss could give you like parts of stars. So like if you have to have like 5, then that way like no matter what your boss says you're good at or whatever you suck at, like the boss could, or say you start with like 10 stars for your day. I got 10 stars, will to live, and then your customer knocks 3 of those stars away. And then your boss is like, okay, well, I'm also gonna knock down, if you don't succeed on these, 2 out of 3 things, or if you do succeed on 2 out of 3 things, you get to keep a star. Like, you know what I mean? Because like, there's always a thing, like, I assume, where you're always trying to please the customer, and then you always also have to please the boss, right? Like your boss can fire you, the customer can't fire you. They can get you fired. But so having the boss give the ability to give stars back. Another cool thing would be to do things like shitty, since you're already in a shitty office, do like shitty office rewards, like a box of donuts shows up one day and it gives you half a star. It bolsters your will to live because somebody brought donuts. Or you know what I mean, like a tchotchke you keep. Yeah, a tchotchke you keep next to your screen, like a picture of your kid. It's like, okay, this introduces this. Oh God, thanks. Now I can see that, this photo of my kid gives me half a star. Like, so these extra little tchotchkes that you can throw in at random can like kind of buff your will to live and keep you going. If you are, cause like like when I'm thinking about this, all I can think of is like, if it's me against my friends or whatever, and we're all trying to be the best call center person, well, everybody's going to shit in each other's cornflakes the whole time, right? It's like, well, you suck, you don't have any will to live. And if I'm, you know what I mean? But if there's a way to like get them back, maybe it's like, maybe your boss, maybe you could get them back by turning your tchotchkes to your boss. So it's like, okay, I got this donut. If I give my boss a donut, he's not going to fire me, and it's like, you could like, kind of tax yourself, to negate the reduction of star.
one of the things that would be interesting, because you want the customer, what I'm tweaking on right now is that the customer doesn't have any particular motivation to act like a customer, to really get what they want.
Right.
So if you could somehow motivate the customer to, even if what their goal is something impossible, if they actually get what they set out to get, then maybe they get one of these buffs when it's their round to be the rep.
Or what if the rep gets like, hey, when the call comes in, you have a deck of 3 cards, and the card is like, they're called upsells. So the person calls, and only you know what the upsell card are. And what you do is you shuffle them and you draw 1, and nobody sees it but you. And during the phone call, at some point, you have to, like, if you can manage to upsell, okay, well, all right, I don't want that nuclear warhead anymore, but I will buy 300 pounds of chicken tomorrow. If you can throw in this upsell, then it'll like negate one of the negative things, and your opponent doesn't know what the upsell could be, right? So maybe it's frogs, lifetime supply of mayonnaise, and 300 pounds of chicken. You pick one, and your opponent's like, oh god, which one is this, kind of thing. And if you can weave it into the story, then it's, because your boss always wants you to upsell, right? Like your boss always wants, and if you could toss something like that in, where, because right now it feels like the player is just getting attacked from their call and their boss, and giving the player a way to fight back through upselling, to kind of repel the caller, and then like maybe again like give donuts to the boss or whatever. So they're kind of playing defensively at the same time that they're working out these social puzzles. Those could be kind of fun as well.
Yeah, I kind of really like the concept of throwing in the upsells in there, because that is something that you have to deal with all the time as a call center representative. I want to try and emphasize like the nihilistic theme that I'm going with. Like it should be a slog through misery, and I want to cut away any portion of like having any sort of like friendship with the boss or something like that. But I really like the idea of maybe during a call, like if you hit your upsell, you give away 2 will, you give away 1 will to live, but you get in return like 2 stars on your call because you did your upsell.
Yeah.
One thing that would be interesting with this too, I think, is kind of, and here's me with my dose of touchy-feeliness for you. But like, it seems to me in kind of the basic expression of the concept is that like the only like reward that could sort of be, having worked in call center myself at that point, like one of the only kind of rewards is actually like release and kind of catharsis at the end of the day, like sort of being able to like go home and just be like, oh my god, I can't believe this, like, like this thing that like happened to me today. It's like your only like reward that you like, the day is finally like over. And it would be interesting if you did, as like kind of one scheme of it is like, you could maybe have it as like whoever got highest ranking gets to pick, but like everybody gives like testimonials, right? Like if you use the idea where everybody gets to sort of rotate roles, right? And so, but like the highest representative gets to pick, like there's only so many only so many people in their call center role get to actually vent.
Oh my god!
Right, and then everybody else has to vent as a customer or a boss, right? And so if you get a high rank, you're the one who gets to go, and I can't believe that guy like did this and that and this and that, right? And everybody else has to be the customer or the boss, and they're like, well, blah 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 blah, right? And so that could be the stakes.
If everybody gets it, it would be okay. I'm just working this out. Every game you have to bring a box of like real world donuts to the game. And at the end of the game, everyone, like we said, everybody gets a chance to be the boss and the customer service, whatever. And at the end, the customer service with the best thing, everybody gets to be catharsis and release everything. And then the person who's the best, like there's one fewer donuts than there are players, so you have to like they get to go like, okay, well, I'm getting one because I need one to release, and somebody doesn't get a donut, or they get to choose who doesn't get the donut. I don't know. I just think that would be I think that would be hilarious. Like just this extra layer of like just
birthday cake.
yeah, that's right.
Right.
Yeah, with their name spelled wrong.
Right. Yeah.
The reward system that I was kicking around and like I hadn't committed to as a final part of the design is at the end of the day, after your performance review, look at your will to live, and for each will to live you have, you describe one small joy that you have when you go home.
So like
And
a
that might be
fiasco
petting your cat.
in collage.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly like that.
Very cool. I have a couple of things. One, I totally want to make a companion app for this game, like actually being able to go to your phone as a customer and say,
Oh, that would be awesome. That would be amazing.
Oh,
you
that
hit
would
the
be
call button,
Oh.
and it tells you who you are and what you want
Yeah.
on the screen.
It would
and
also
that's
you
what
could also
have to
pick
act as.
You could also use part of it to like when it starts in, you choose the kind of player you are, and if you are the sailor, then it goes, okay, here's your upsell options, right?
Yeah.
So like it would
Yeah.
randomly generate your upsells, and it would if you're the boss, then these are the things you'd have to rate them on, and maybe they don't know what you're going to rate them on. Like maybe the boss is like, okay, I'm going to rate you on 5 things, but you have no idea what they are. So like I'm going to watch the conversation, and the number of times you say you lose one, right? The number of times you scratch your nose, the number of times you say no, I can't. You can't have that. Or, the number of times you say yes, you're too giving, and Andy's app would just like randomly spit out here's the things, the only things you can review them on, and so now the player's like, okay, well, is it no?
And they don't even know.
Yeah, they don't know what it is.
Oh.
So now they're like they're working this through and dealing with that, and they're also trying to upsell, and they're afraid of what they don't know.
Right. Yeah, and they're right in the crux, like they're right in the intersection of all these contradictory things.
Yeah, and I have no idea. I think that would be
Brutal.
hilarious, and especially like
that's so funny.
Your nihilist, like no hope. Like there's definitely that feeling of like, God, I got to deal with this, and I don't know what you're saying about me. Like, this donut better be good. Like, it's just this feeling of like, an onslaught that you're trying to repel. I think that could be hilarious.
And having a list of all the possible things that could come up in the app as an employee manual as part of the game. Here's the like giant stack of documentation you have to follow during a call.
Yeah,
that would be amazing.
Oh, that's so good. Oh, that's very funny.
I was just thinking, like, if you're doing the rotational aspect of things too, you're talking about giving your stars away because you've made or you've given in or whatever. Like the people who get those stars, it could be kind of a rotational aspect in that too, where when they get stars, it's something you could use on your turn or at some aspect of your turn to hinder another player. And then that's a reason for you to be trying to get the stars as much as possible so you can pass the pain, basically. And it could be the same thing when you receive stars or when you get them, like, you could get them multiple ways. And if you could be, like the wrench thing we were talking about, it could be a bad thing that you're getting that you have to somehow work into your concept in whatever role you are so that you can pass it off too, type of thing.
I don't know why I keep going back to these, but maybe the bad things are the donuts. Maybe you're such a nihilist and you know like Janie keeps bringing treats to the office and you're trying not to get fat, but it's not helping.
Janie.
So you keep getting donuts and you're like, oh God, like I don't want these donuts. I don't know why I keep going back to donuts.
A thing that's I think a crucial thing for you to decide, and there's no right answer, obviously, is to decide whether you want it to be that you want the game to kind of describe a dynamic, right? Like, you've already discussed like sort of the feeling you want to have, but do you want to walk through and show the system that creates these kind of like weird, this creates this feeling, right? Like all of these competing things, in which case you want to set up like, perverse incentives and rewards and sort of feedback mechanisms, or do you want it to be basically like sort of an empathy kind of thing, where it's like, I just want you to feel what this is like, which case you just care about kind of structure and pointing the right things at each other. Again, there's no right answer, but I think that will help. That's another thing that will sort of help guide decisions and sort of when sort of picking there. And then you can have elements of both. Obviously, you're not shoehorned strictly into one path or another, but if one is the emphasis over the other, then you do different things.
Really, really good point. Like going into Metatopia, I'm definitely going to be juggling a lot of these new ideas now and see what my actual goal for it is. Because I think I originally made the game as an exercise of, I'm sort of teetering on the edge of being able to leave my day job, thank goodness. And there are a lot of things that I'm going to be giving up because of that. So I designed this game originally pointing myself where the right solution is getting fired and never ever again. Only obviously in this game you can't eat if you do that. So yeah, but I definitely have to decide whether I want this to be a systemic analysis or if I want this to be an empathy engine to sort of people who don't have it.
And again, you can have like a little bit of both there, but it's hard to do them both and do it justice.
Yeah.
I really like Andy's idea about that companion app. I think it's awesome.
The companion app sounds dope.
It's the genre so
perfectly
well.
too. Yeah.
And you could just keep feeding random things into it, right? Like, you just have like a CMS where you're just like, okay, here's a bunch of new, criteria for your performance review that you don't know about, and the game just randomly picks one of 70 ones that you've just come up with, or your friends have come up with, or people have suggested, and you're like, yeah, that's awesome, I'm putting that in. I just think that's a cool idea.
All right, does that help you out?
Yeah, that definitely helped.
Cool. So I'm going to recap my game idea from last week. I think Greg may have seen some of it, but might be new to the rest of you. But the conceit of the idea was that originally it was a hybrid digital analog game. So the players were seated around a table in a cabin, and there are monsters breaking in. The monsters are blind, but they hear sound very well. So you have an app or a tablet in the center of the table. The microphone's running. You make too much noise, the monsters come in and eat your face. So that's basically the idea. It's changed somewhat since the last one. Now it is.
Well, you're going to really have to sell me on this because I cool idea.
What's that?
You really have to sell me on this because I really liked the original pitch.
I do. I like it too. But it was difficult to get enough motivation for the players to have enough conflict, to argue with each other, to make enough noise to bring the monsters in, or at least risk that.
Okay. I have a pitch for you after you tell me what's actually going on.
No worries. I might make both. The other one is that you have an iPad in the center of the table, but instead of monsters trying to break in, it's a spirit in the room with you. The spirit is a vindictive spirit and hates loud noises and bright lights. So the microphone's running, the camera's running. If things get too bright, it gets pissed. Gets too loud, it gets pissed. Rips your face off. Good times for the spirit. But I looked into this, and this is technically possible, but I can run it with headphones and still have the microphone enabled on the tablet. So what we do is we have one player wearing headphones who can hear the spirit. All the other players can't. and the spirit is
Oh.
talking to the one player who is the medium. And the spirit tells the medium different instructions, different truths or lies, tries to manipulate them. And but if you piss the spirit off, then the spirit gives the player instructions like, now you're possessed. Now you have to do what I tell you to do. And they basically tell the player to do certain things, like Simon Says kind of stuff. One of the things could be simply pass the headphones to the person on your left. Now they're the new medium.
Right.
And we continue on right like that. That's as far as I've got. So that's my basic concept. Now, I feel like there's a lot of storyline that can go along with the seance form of the game,
Yeah.
with the spirit having a story. But I really want it to be sort of GM-less, or in the sense of the tablet itself is the GM. So you can just basically pull out your phone, and turn out the lights, turn
Candles. Yeah.
candles, whatever, and just play anytime you want.
I like the idea of like when you're kind of talking about this, people around the table or whatever it is. I immediately thought of the game Clue and how each person would be like, you know, they would all come with like a fictional background, right? So like as soon as you said it was a medium, it's like, oh, my children died, or I'm looking for like my grandmother's locket, or whatever it's going to be. And so each of them has their own specific agenda, and they're competing for the medium's attention. Maybe it's like, I need to figure this out, you know, or and they have a time, so they're trying to like interrupt each other and you know, kind of social engineer that kind of content out of them.
Yeah,
It-
that's a concept that I had started thinking about, but I forgot about it. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that like basically chaining off that is you know, it's tempting, I think, to make like any kind of RPG kind of project or storytelling thing like open, so you can tell every story. But I think the more focused, like if you're like, hey, we have not just like a role, but like, you know, these could be like different characters. It could be a specific seance, and like the characters in like you know, if the other characters have what you call it, phones, right? Like, you know, so like there's one person gets the spirit, the other person's in the room have phones, and then they have like sort of an action, right? Like they can sort of talk to the people, but they can also try and do stuff to like, you know, like could, you know, sort of seduce the spirit or cajole the spirit, try and bring it over, or try and talk to that person, right? And then they can sort of select that off the app. And so like it has this dynamic, and then the spirit's still directing, but then if you have this specific story that can move all these different ways, you know, it's like something like you know, I think like a classic of this is like the sword from Burning Wheel, right? Like you have all these characters with all these different like motivations and needs for this like magical sword, and then but like there's only one sword, and somebody's got to take it, right? And then it can be, you know, it can run a gazillion different ways.
Right. Yeah, I'd like to stay away from multi-device stuff, because the having everybody with their own copy of the app. Whoa, jeez. The dog's just tangled up in the hamper. This is going to be a disaster. Hang on, I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that.
No worries.
Yeah, so the having multiple people with the same copy of the app is a barrier I don't think I want to deal with right now, at least for a first run. like I can get my friends to play if I have a copy of something, but getting all of them to download something and actually having a device that's not almost dead battery can be kind of challenging sometimes. So having one and then only needing one charger at the table, I think that works.
That's fair.
Not to discount the idea.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, you can still, you can still make specific scenario and characters, but like when you have the specific scenarios and characters, and the players know what they get like a little card or whatever it is that tell them sort of who they are and what they need, and then it makes it easier for you to also program the ghost with specific behaviors that'll be relevant to the different people.
Yeah,
and all you have to do is tell it how many of those people are in it.
Yeah, I was thinking of the app is containing multiple stories, where there are distinct stories that are not generally repeatable. I guess sort of like modules in D&D terms, right? You don't really go through a module multiple times in quick succession. They're not terribly repeatable unless you modify them. But having multiple stories that people can choose from that come along with a character, like a character cast that you can play as to go along with the story, and that have interactions between the multiple players, I think is part of it. Yeah. The issue I'm having with it is that I'm not 100% sure where to put the focus. Do I put more of the focus into the app itself or the analog aspect of it? So it can go kind of either way. Like the app can just be sort of like a mechanical thing where it just prompts. You can even do something like read page number 3 or something, and then you flip to the page in the book. Like that's the extreme. Or the story could all be contained almost completely within the app, and then you get character cards, as you were saying, Quinn, and then it's just
I'd say if you're trying to avoid the multiple device problem, probably the focus should be on the analog set, because that's what most people are going to be interacting with.
That's fair.
And you can then do it sort of like, I don't know if you've seen Project Firebrand.
No, not familiar.
It's Vincent Baker's latest-ish. He's also doing a few other things, but I got a copy of it last PAX East, like a sort of a early copy of it, and so like and it's actually guided a lot of what I'm doing with Five Fire and Radio Free Kaiju, which is another game that I didn't talk about earlier, but where everybody has their own like little copy of the booklet, which has different kind of instructions and see. It's almost sort of like I don't know if the Lost World series, the sort of like, it's like a choose your own fighting, like choose your own adventure fighting game kind of thing, where everybody has their own book, and like, hey, you go to this page and I go to this page, and the results sort of line up. It doesn't have to be that complex, but basically like a thing of like, if you have a book per character and they just have different things, right, where it could go like where the ghost is like, I'm going to evoke the spirit of your dead mother, Brendan, right? Like, go to page X, right? And then that's like a read aloud text, and like some kind of instructions, and like everybody has their own set of like, people can play it open ended, but then when the ghost moves them, the scripts sort of pop up, and then the action sort of takes these. That's because it seems like you want the ghost to be kind of a randomizing kind of plot picker in a way, like sort of plot element things.
That was one of the ideas. Yeah, I think I have to do a lot of exploration. One of the other conceits that was interesting, it's sort of gimmicky, was to do it as a Ouija board, and everybody has to put the fingers on the screen. People triggers the game to start.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I like the
Yeah.
idea of the medium a lot. I like the I like it. I keep kind of thinking back and forth between like my first thing was, what if one of the players was a spirit and the medium had to guess which one was the spirit through interacting with their kind of like, that kind of thing. It would remove the like, the microphone and audio thing from it or whatever. Just kind of like that kind of came up in my mind because, but I do like the idea of the ghost kind of telling the medium what to do. I'm having a hard time connecting that with how to get the players to interact with the medium. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
And like if you did a booklet sort of thing with story arcs or whatever, like it's really limiting in that it's analog. Like it's like, okay, well, eventually we're gonna run through these 5 scenarios and they have to overlap. You know what I mean? Like it's a real challenge. I'm just trying to figure out. I'm just sitting here trying to think of a way to like get the players to want to interact in a way that upsets the ghost. Right?
It'd be
Like,
super nice if I could have like natural language processing and voice input. Then that would be super easy. It's like,
yeah,
Siri, what the hell are you talking about?
yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking along the same lines of like getting people to interact, and you're talking about it being voice or light activated, and it was making me think like, how are you going to get people to raise their voices? So I was wondering like if you could maybe somehow define the rules, maybe even like secretly per person somehow, as to like so basically you would have a fixed amount of time, and at the end of that time whoever has the ghost is the one that gets to live or something, and everybody else dies.
Seance hot potato.
Yeah, and so that you're trying to do your trick to get the ghost to come to you, and then for somehow have it so that if everybody else figures that out, they can block you.
Maybe the ghost comes to you, like the ghost, if you do what the ghost wants, and the players don't, maybe the players don't know what they are. Like the players get a card that's like, here's the options of like your actions that you could do to like appease the ghost, and only the game master knows what the current medium knows what the ghost wants, right? So the ghost whispers to you like, I want more light. Okay, so then the players are like, okay, the only way though, maybe they have like 3 bits of information, about like their Aunt Maud who passed away. And the only way they can knock off each of these 3 things is to attract the ghost 3 times. So they're like, okay, I'm going to like, okay, I don't know which one of these things it is. Maybe I need to speak really loud. Oh, that got me the ghost. Okay, now I got the ghost. I'm going to ask it a question. I get an answer. And then other people are like, then the ghost clearly moves to this person and they get the headphones. And then the ghost tells them what the next thing is. And then everybody else is like, okay, I don't know what this is. Maybe I'll try this. And it's like, nope, whatever. And then the ghost comes to them, and it's constantly like, the ghost is constantly getting appeased. But the thing could be that if the ghost like gets what it wants, X times, then the game's over, or one of the players gets ejected, like musical chairs or something like that. That kind of thing could enable the players to like keep aggravating the ghost to get what they want. But eventually the ghost just snaps at them. It's like a Jack in the Box kind of, right? Where you just keep everybody's turning that crank, and then suddenly, oh damn it, I got taken out.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I was too greedy.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That way you engage the players, and part of it too is like, if one person's the medium and always the medium, it can be challenge. It's kind of like, maybe I want to be the medium, maybe I want to, and everybody else, if you keep it moving like that and keep it this kind of invisible challenge based, then it might occur to them to just keep trying new things and keep interacting with one another. Because at the same time that they want the ghost all the time, eventually the ghost is going to blow up in their face, and they don't want that, because then they go visit with Aunt Maud or whatever.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll have to work on that idea a bit.
And that way you can still keep your device as well, like
Mhm.
the device still there to tell them what every person or every round it's a new thing, right? So it's like, okay, I've got the, I want you to be loud. Okay, like let's go around, whatever. And then everybody tries something and it's like, no, you didn't get one of the 5 options. Okay, now the ghost wants something else and you have to keep like out trying to do each other.
I like the idea of some challenges having 2 instructions go into different ears, so you have to split like your possession. Take one headphone out and hand it to somebody else, so you do half instructions. They
That's
do
a cool
half
one too.
the instructions.
Yeah,
I also considered modding a set of headphones so that one side was a speaker and the other side was headphones, so that you could have public information and then private information, and then play those 2 off of each other.
Yeah, that would be great. Well, you know what? One thing that you could do, I think that would be a cool way to start it is, and this sort of touches on your Ouija board kind of thing, is like to start the seance, you actually go like you set it out loud, and it's like basically gives you the instructions to set up the environment, like turn out the lights. Now everybody gather around in a table, right? We're going to call, like, sort of like, he's kind of like sets up, everybody gets over, does all the stuff. Okay, now I shall, like the spirit will take over someone at the seance, right? And then it's sort of, and that's when it picks one of the people, right? And then it's like, okay, now put on the headphones, right? And then it goes through, and so that, and that's sort of the it creates the space and the environment and like evokes it.
Yeah.
And then you now know that the ghost is sort of in someone and moving around.
That's awesome. I like that idea of having the ghost possess the device. One of my favorite things that ever happened when I was playing video games was, and I think it's one of the coolest things that's ever happened, like ever. In the first Metal Gear Solid game, the villain Psycho Mantis could control everything with with its mind, and what it did was it would go like, put the controller on it. You're like, oh, okay, like physically, okay, and it would go, I can control this thing's movement, and it would go like right, and then what it would do is it would activate the like rumble and cause the controller to skitter to the right, like physically, and it would go move to the left, and it would, and it was like, are you kidding me that this video game is controlling a physical object? Like and then it could like read files from your game saves and all this kind of stuff, but it was like that was one of the coolest things I've ever experienced in video games, was when the game controlled physical objects and I had no idea it was coming, right? And having like the iPad, do that thing where it spins around and then just like, not it spins around, but like the screen, like a pointer spins around and picks the person it's going to possess. I think that's a cool way for it to like leap onto the person. It'd be cool too, like, I mean, this is super high tech, but like gets everybody to wear like an LED pendant or whatever, and so when the ghost like picks them, it leaves here with an animation and then their pendant flares up. Like that would be awesome. Or like a phone, or like that gets back to your multiple device, but something like that just like shows that the person is currently inhabited by the ghost would be, I think that'd be mind-blowing.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's given me a lot to work on. Now, James, you said you had a pitch for the cabin idea. Yeah.
Well, the cabin idea made me think of Alien. It made me think of like a tent situation where you're in a closed environment and you have to accomplish something in order to live. So while this device is listening to people, they should have a series of tasks that require communication that they need to succeed in order to live. So it's like arranging a deck of cards, or maybe perhaps even like building a small structure with something on the table. Like, not only do the tasks make noise themselves, but in order to do it properly, people would have to communicate on those tasks. It's a very simple suggestion, but if the activity itself is noisy, like you could even play it solitaire and try and beat your phone's microphone or what have you. But obviously it's a more fun experience if there are other people there to mess it for you.
And if you use the
Especially
space,
Yeah.
like, you know, if you had like a, you know, another environmental thing, where like if you sort of like if everybody's kind of like, not only do they have to communicate, but you're not allowed to be near each other. Like everybody sort of like has to sort of like it, you know, it scatters them across the like a room, right? And then you still have the thing in the center, right? But like, and if we have all different roles, like I'm the engineer, right? And someone else is, you know, the Marine, and we need those two to get together, but we're across the room. Well, that's going to be difficult, right? Like, you know, some yelling or something's going to have to, and if it's picking up on our footsteps and stuff like that, and if you don't know how close they are and how sensitive it is.
The other thing that you could do would be do like those games where you have to stack wooden animals on top of each other. So it's a puzzle where you have to, like, you know, take this and you have to assemble, like you were saying, maybe there's a flux capacitor, right? And so it's like you have these pieces and you have to like assemble them, but they're really prone to falling over and setting off the microphone and causing the alien to come and kill you or whatever. That could be another one of those challenges. That could be pretty cool.
I was just
Especially if you
thinking,
have, like, sorry, the like instructions for assembling the flux capacitor that are just wrong, or
Right.
upside down, or
Yeah.
mistranslated or something.
What's that game for the iPad? The multiplayer game where
Oh, keep
Space
talking
Team?
and nobody. Oh, what?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Space
Was
Team.
it Space?
yeah,
Space Team did
Oh,
that.
Space
keep
Team
talking,
gets so
nobody
loud.
explodes. Isn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where everybody has to do these things and it keeps changing, and you have to like command one another to do stuff, and if you don't, then that's a great game.
That's a good
Yeah,
idea.
going to going to my call center experience and training, one of the things they always get you to do is like have one guy tell somebody else how to build a thing out of Lego that they've built just by instructions. And that's something that it makes me think of, something like that, where, or you could even have like one person can open their eyes, everybody else has to close their eyes, and they have to stack something, or and that would.
Yeah.
How do you communicate that with? You could say that it's like you're allowed to make noise, but it can't be more than like 2 seconds at a time, or something, so that it has to say something really quickly. But what do you say? How do you get that going, and how do you say enough to make sense? That would be interesting.
What was the name of that? What's the name of that VR game with the explosive case? The
Keep
bomb one?
talking and nobody explodes or something.
Yeah, that kind of thing where like one person is seeing it and the other person is giving them instructions. I think like that's a really fun game to play, just in the VR space. But bringing it into this kind of thing would be hilarious as well.
Yeah, that would work really well. That's a good call.
Yeah.
And Space Team, definitely. Like the giving instructions to other people where.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
That game was loud and frustrating. It was fun though.
Also, it makes me think of the board game Mysterium, if you've heard of that.
Yeah, I haven't played it, but I know of it.
It's a fairly new game where you're basically one person is the ghost, and everybody else are mediums, and it's kind of like a clue where the ghosts, or like they have to figure out who did the murder, where it took place, and what weapon was used. And the way they do that is the ghost communicates with them in dreams, and the dreams are these cards that are really obscure, strange things. And so the mediums have to like look at this card that it's like a weird castle in the sky, and they have to figure out where it fits in with all of these different people. And they're like, oh well, the toy maker has a castle on his shelf, and it's the same, there's a castle here, so it could be that. Whereas the ghosts might be thinking like, well, the castle's blue and the gardener is wearing a blue shirt, I want them to pick blue, but they're picking other things. It's a similar idea in that concept.
Giving like an alternate vocabulary would be funny too. It's like, you know, an episode of Star Trek where they Picard and that alien are stuck together and they're gonna die or whatever, and he speaks like everything is spoken in like cultural
Metaphor,
history.
yeah.
In metaphor. he's like that guy on the wall, in the wheat. And they're just
Darmok and Gelada Tanaka.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Like that kind of thing is
I'm
exactly
not
what
a
it
nerd
means.
at all.
No.
There's a board game that's like that too. I've played called Ugtect.
Ugtect.
Yeah, and the concept is you have to build a specific statue, but you're all cavemen, so you can only speak in like grunts and stuff. And there's a specific language, and it gives you the language with like Unga means like move left and all that stuff. And you have it comes with a inflatable club, and so like the club is to, if you get it right, you hit them on the head once. If you get it wrong, you hit them on the head twice. And so you have to like get them to make this thing, and you end up like just stringing together words, and it works really well. The only problem I find with that game is it works well while you don't know the language. Once you learn the language, it gets so much easier, and it kind of ruins it, which could be useful if you're using an app, because all you have to do is you can just randomize commands.
Yep.
So every game you have to learn a new system.
That's an awesome idea.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, did anybody have any more things to say?
Sorry, I think I lost.
I was just wrapping up a bit.
I think I'm set. This was great.
Yeah, me
Yeah,
too.
this is fun.
All right. So this has been another successful GM party, and I'm going to stop the broadcast now. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good
guys.
night.